Wooden Staircase by KronosTrigger. My family and I went to celebrate New Year's over at my aunt's house back when I was 11 or 10. There were a plethora of people there that I didn't know, so I just stuck by the cousins I knew the most so I wouldn't be shy during the celebration. The adults stayed on the main floor while the kids stayed in the basement and played around on the GameCube. We must have stayed up until maybe 2 a.m. or more before everyone went to bed. Everyone except me. I won't lie about this, but I have nyctophobia. It's not just what could be in the dark that terrifies me, but the thought of staying in it for more than a few minutes at a time is just horrifying to me. Anyways, I was the only kid awake, and I had my phone to make sure I wasn't completely in the dark. Even when there were sleeping kids nearby, I was still terrified of something grabbing me from the darkness. It happened around maybe 3 a.m. I was hiding under the blanket with a light on my face when I heard a noise I can't quite explain. It sounded like someone walking through puddles or something. This was a red alarm for me since I didn't expect anyone up around 3 a.m. taking a shower or a bath. The air felt negative at this point. I was too afraid to move, so I stayed under the covers and listened as the footsteps were moving towards me. They were coming my way, and I had no way of escaping. All I could do was sit there and wait for the worst to happen, but I didn't. No, I thought a smart move would be to get up and grab the closest string to turn on a light, which I did. Nothing. There wasn't anything there but wet footprints. Freaked out, I rushed up the steps to wake my parents and begged them to take me home. They said some generic response like, "You're making an excuse so you can go home and isolate yourself in your room," or "It's just your imagination." I truly wish it was just my imagination playing tricks on me. But the wet sensation on my feet told me otherwise when I had stepped in one of the wet footprints. Needless to say, I didn't try going to sleep. I hid under the covers again, with the phone so close to my face, my breath was fogging up the screen. I heard the footsteps again, but this time, they were slower, more menacing even. I was braver this time. I shot back up and tugged hard on the string, turning the light on above me. Nothing was there. Relieved, I went to go sit down on the couch with the light on. My cousins were sleeping all the way across the basement, so the light wouldn't wake them up. As soon as I sat down on the couch, the light went out. Worried, I slowly got back up and moved over to the string to tug on it again, but was instead greeted with the coldest hand I had ever felt in my entire life. It barely touched my wrist before I shot backwards, slipping and falling on my ass. Cliché, I know. My aunt and uncle had a pool table in the basement, so for some reason I thought I would be safe if I crawled underneath it and stayed under it. With the way this pool table was designed, both sides of it had a gap you could crawl through if you were small enough, which I was. I crawled through the gaps and moved myself to one side that didn't have a gap in it. This way I didn't have to watch my back and could press myself up against it if I needed to. I did just that, and I listened as the footsteps slowly made their way over to the pool table. I had myself as far away from the sides the noise was coming from as possible. I could see a little blue light getting closer to the pool table. I had been staring at it for some time until I realized it wasn't a light. It was an eye, looking right back at me. A bony, almost skeleton-like hand slowly moved in through the gap on the opposite side, trying to reach me, but could barely touch my nose. I could see the creature's face at this point and went to scream, yet no sound came out. I couldn't tell if it was male or female. It almost looked like an alien of some sort. It had black hair that was slicked back, almost as if there was too much hair gel in it. I already knew its hair was just wet from wherever it came from. It had 2 sunken holes in its head, where the eyes were supposed to be, and in them I could see the faintest blue pupils. The skin looked bleached too. Despite how terrifying this creature was, it wasn't very tall. If I had to make a comparison, it might have been as tall as my mom, who's only 5'5". Somehow, I got ballsy enough to slide out from under the pool table on the opposite side and booked it up the stairs leading to the door that led into the kitchen. These stairs were wooden, so if you were to miscalculate while running up them, you could lose your footing and your leg could slide in between them and get stuck. This didn't happen, but rather, I felt a similarly cold hand grab my ankles and attempt to pull me under. In a severe state of panic, I flailed my free foot and managed to kick it off so I could fling the door open and rush into the living room. But the door wouldn't open. I wanted to cry at this point. I was terrified. I just wanted to go home. I prayed for this to be some kind of nightmare that I could just wake up from, but it wasn't. It was reality. After one last budge, the door finally opened as if it were some miracle, and I ran into the living room, having a mental breakdown as my parents tried to calm me down while in their confused state. Needless to say, I slept with them the rest of the night. The following morning, my parents, along with my aunt and uncle, went down to check and see if the footprints were still there. For some unexplainable reason, they were. If you saw these footprints, you'd know there was no way any of the kids could pull off this as if it was some sort of messed up prank. They were far bigger than all of our foot sizes combined, which had my family worried for my safety. We ended up going home instead of staying there for the rest of the evening. After that, I didn't see the creature at all until later on in my life, but that's a story for another time. The one thing that still worries me though, the last set of wooden steps were several feet off the ground. I was on the last step leading to the kitchen door when the creature grabbed my ankle.